Hello and welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. My name is Eleanor and I am a British American oboist studying at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, literally my dream school. And it took me a long way to get there. I applied and auditioned for 12 schools in 3 different countries. It was a lot of hard work, but oh my gosh, so worth it. I want you to have the confidence to work hard in achieving your goals. So come with me as we go on this journey together. So sit down, pull up a chair, take a seat, or if you're on the go, welcome to the Confident Musicianing Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Confident Musicianing Podcast. I am so happy that you are here today. We are going to have so much fun. It is finally autumn. I am wearing a lovely cashmere jumper. I just feel so cozy today. This past week, I just started back at the conservatoire studying oboe, and I have worn a lot of wool recently to classes and whatnot. I just feel so like cozy. It's the autumn vibes. It's great. Actually, it's kind of a bit too much sometimes because right now I live in Scotland and we are in a big storm and it's very windy, very blowy, very rainy, just so much. It's like a really kind of big storm, and so I thought, what not better to do? Is that how you say it? Wouldn't it be a great idea, there we go, to record a podcast while I am inside and cozy, and yeah, so that is what we are doing. So this episode is all about a reflection kind of how this summer went, and an emphasis on the fact that all of our summers were different. It is now autumn, so we can kind of look back on the summers and see kind of how they were, reflect on them. You know I love a good reflection, and kind of talk about our summers and not compare them. You know, I think that's really important, to not compare your summer to anyone else's summer. So let me tell you a little bit about my summer because I am so excited to. So I think the biggest thing that happened this summer was that I went to France twice, once in July and the second one in September. I did not know I was going to France twice. I thought I was going to France one time, and then I got asked to go to France again, and I was like, yes, please. So both of them were with the company Buffet Crampon. Buffet Crampon is the company that makes my oboe, and for the second time I went to France, it was to play in the Buffet Crampon's 200th year anniversary. It was a huge deal. It was so much fun. I met so many amazing oboists from around Europe. We performed in the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, and afterwards there was like a huge boat on the Seine, and we like partied on the Seine with the Eiffel Tower glistening in the background, and I was like, whoa, like what the heck is happening? It was such an amazing experience. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but this is so important. I think that the reason why this experience couldn't have happened if I hadn't reached out and contacted Buffet Crampon. I was at an event. This was like 6 months before the concert that I was in. I was at an event, and there was a representative for this company, and I was like, I need to introduce myself to them, and I did, and that kind of slowly over time snowballed into me being invited to perform in this concert. And I think, it's crazy. I was stood on this boat, right, that has been rented out, and there was a party and whatnot, and I ended up catching up with the person that I originally introduced myself to, and they were like, this started because you just introduce yourself to someone. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like, whoa, that's crazy. And I think networking as musicians is so extremely important, and I think that is just like evidence of just how important It is, or it can be. So that was an amazing experience. I learned so much. Actually, the past episode, I'm just scrolling up because I have all of my episodes on my computer. The one 2 weeks ago, talks more about this, talks more about the trip in Paris. I'll link it below. It talks more about the trip in Paris, and kind of lessons that I learned through that second trip in Paris. So if you want to take a quick look at that, that will be linked below in the description in the show notes, and yeah, go have fun with that. Okay, the next thing that was so much fun that I want to tell you all about was that I played in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So if you don't know what the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is, it is a big festival in Edinburgh, where so many different performers perform. It's not just classical music, although it includes classical music, but there's also comedies and plays, I think. And just like all of these different shows, I think that there's like just like more concert-y type shows as well, like kind of like more pop music, etc. All different kinds of music, all different kinds of performances. It's just like performing in general. And I was able to be a part of that. So I was in, well, there was this opportunity where I played the cor anglais in Holst's Planets, and we ended up playing in the Fringe for 2 nights, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. I think something really funny and really technical about this was I was on cor anglais, and there are 2 different styles of cor anglais. Well, I'm sure there are more than 2, but these are the kind of 2 ones necessary for the story. There is a conservatoire style, which is common all around the world, and then there's a thumbplate style, which is common just in the UK. And the cor that they had me play on was a thumbplate cor, and I am a conservatoire player, which basically means kind of the notes, you know, the fingerings are different, some of them. And so I kind of, it was like a week-long course, and then we played in the Fringe, and I had to, like, during this week, I had to kind of cram the knowledge of, you know, how to play a thumbplate instrument in that week. And at the beginning, I was messing up a lot, because I couldn't prepare for this beforehand, because I didn't have the instrument. So at the beginning, I was like messing up a lot, and it was kind of stressful and whatnot. And then at the end, I was more confident in it. And actually, it's really funny because I recently, at the conservatoire, I started cor anglais lessons, and that cor was a conservatoire cor, which I'm used to. But when I played it, I started playing thumbplate fingerings because just my brain was so used to the cor being a thumbplate instrument after that intense week of thumbplate playing. So that was really funny. But overall, that week was so exciting and amazing, and we played in a church, and this church wasn't a too big of a church, but it was a good substantial church size. But it felt like the music was kind of bursting out of the church, like, you know, like it was so expansive and so full. And Holst, you know, his Planets, it's just such an amazing piece. If you haven't listened to the Planets all the way through recently, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. So yeah, that's like a highlight. So we've gone to like 2 highlights. I mean, the first one has 2 separate trips to France, for buffet, crampon, but then the second one is the Fringe. So we have these highlights, right? But let's also talk about the other thing. So I got sick and spent a week in bed, and that sucks. I mean, it wasn't anything specific. It was just an illness. And that wasn't very good. And I remember thinking, like, I was stuck in bed, right? And I had like TV shows I could watch, films, I had books, I had magazines, I had all of the stuff that you have when you're sick. And I just sat there and I was like, I have to practice. I have to practice. Like, I need to practice. It's been so long since I've practiced. And it's interesting because I think me about 2 years ago would have maybe gotten up and tried to practice. But me now knows better. Knows better than to do that, because I was like, I am not practicing. I am not practicing. When I am ill, when I am sick in bed, even when I'm starting to recover, I'm not going to put myself through that, right? When I'm ill. And I was like, I mean, I wasn't just like under the weather. I was ill. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a difference. And even when I started back up with the oboe, I started incrementally, right? The first day practicing, I practiced a wee bit, just a little bit. The next day I added a little bit more until I got stronger and stronger. But I think that that's a big thing to know. I feel like as musicians, when we're ill, we have this, nagging little voice in our head saying you gotta practice. But the best thing that we can do for ourselves when we're ill or whenever we need a break is to take the break. A few days ago, had a really, 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 really crazy day where I had a recording session and then a lecture and then a rehearsal and then an oboe lesson and then a cor anglais lesson and then another rehearsal. My day started at like in the conservatoire, it started at I don't remember, 8 and went until 9 or something. It was crazy, and that was just with me playing the oboe or the cor anglais. It wasn't just study time. It was rehearsals and then lessons and then lessons. So for oboe, playing wise, it was a lot. And the next day I was I had some rehearsals because I had rehearsals and I have to go to the rehearsals obviously, but I was I'm not gonna touch the instrument otherwise because that was too much and I need to recover. Yeah, I felt it. I think if I didn't feel that urge to need to recover, then I would have practiced and it would have been fine. But I knew that I needed to give myself that little bit of a break so that I didn't end up injuring myself. So, all that being said, I got ill and I spent a week in bed. And I think, it's interesting because when we have our summers, and I know it's autumn and summer is so last season, but when we have our summers or when we have any season, we tend to compare our summers. And I think I struggled with that. I was partying on a boat on the Seine with the Eiffel Tower glistening in the background, and I had trouble comparing my summers with other people. Everyone compares their summers, even though I had a summer full of really exciting things. And I think it's normal to struggle with that because I posted about the amazing trips I had because I wanted to share that and it was so exciting, but I really didn't want to share that I was ill because I wasn't up for posting, I wasn't up for creating content when I was ill, you know what I mean? I didn't want to do that, but that means that you guys didn't know I was ill, and so you that's the thing. I feel when we scroll, we see the highlights. You could be watching someone's Instagram post about their amazing trip, and you don't know, they might be clicking that post button when they're in bed and ill. Do you know what I mean? There's so much to kind of think about that, and it's so normal to struggle with that. So I challenge you going into this autumn season towards the winter, even towards the spring, to kind of remind yourself that, especially on the internet, people share their highlights, and I also, I have shared low things as well. I shared about my exam fail and other things like that. But generally, Instagram is such a highlight reel. If we compare our real lives to Instagram or social media, it's not going to be helpful, So yeah, I challenge you, and I also challenge myself because it's very hard to not compare ourselves to other people. And that is how my summer went. So yeah. Before we finish, I want to tell you about something that really has helped me in my practice, which is a notable practice journal. I feel like there's a huge difference when you go into a practice room and you don't really know what to do, so you just play for however long, versus going into a practice room knowing exactly what you need to do and getting that stuff done, and then you feel way more productive. And planning my practice for me is the difference between those two scenarios. And to plan my practice, I use a notable practice journal. This journal helps me not only plan my practice but also reflect after, so that I can get better with every single session. As soon as I figured out that this notebook was helping me, I knew that I had to tell you about it, and I knew that I had to give you a code. So use code Eleanor15 for 15% off your journal. That is Eleanor, ELEANOR 15 for 15% off your journal. The code will be in the description in the show notes, and so will a link to the notable sites that will also be down there. So get yourself a notable practice journal, and yeah, let's all have more productive, effective, and focused sessions, because isn't that what we want, especially when starting up the new academic year? Yeah, that's what we want. So You know me, I don't recommend anything that I don't absolutely love. This code is an affiliate code, which means I do receive a commission with no extra cost to you. All right, that is about it for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and hearing about my summer. If you want to tell me all about your summer, please do that. You can DM me on Instagram at eleanor.obo. You can also, I guess, do they do DMs on TikTok? I feel really, really out of the loop with that. Yes, you can, right? Yes, you can. You can DM me on TikTok as well. Eleanor, ELEANOR .obo, O-B-O-E, and tell me all about your summer. If you want to send me an email that tells me all about your summer, that is eleanor@confidentmusicianing.com. That will also be in the description, and you can take the spelling from the podcast, the Confident Musicianing Podcast. I'd love to hear all about your summer and all about what you are doing this autumn. So yeah, I cannot wait to hear about that. All right, that is about it for this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next episode. All right, take care. Bye bye.